So together we rise. So Justin wrote that song back during the pandemic when our community was only able to come together online. And if you go to our YouTube channel, I'm sure you can find the recording of many members of our community on Zoom coming together to sing that song. And it's a wonderful expression of how, even in the toughest times, we can find a way to be in community together, to come together and rise together. And so, as I said, this is what we're talking about this month. As Karen said in her invocation, we believe in this idea of unity, of oneness, that there is only one. In fact, the very first principle that our founder wrote as the Declaration of Principles is, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, that one indestructible, absolute, self-existent cause. That one manifests itself in, through, and as all creation, but it's not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of the living Spirit. We believe in God as that one thing, and that we believe that we are all each a unique and perfect expression of God showing up right here and right now. And what a liberating idea that is, what a freeing idea that is, and what an idea that is that carries with it some responsibility on how we interact with each other in a community, in a community of spirit, in a community of outside, in our work, in our families, and so forth. If we keep in mind that we are part of that one, then that shapes and colors the way that we interact with each other. If I can be in any situation, whether it's going to be a challenging situation or a joyful situation, and I can remember that the person across from me is the presence of God, what a difference I bring to that situation. I remember early on in my training, going into, I was a teacher at the school district, and sometimes you have like parent conferences that are going to be a bit challenging, or meetings with other people and so forth. And I remember after hearing that, keeping that idea of God as the person across from you. Anytime I thought I was going to be in any kind of a challenging situation, it was in my mind, I was saying over and over again as I'm walking to that room, God is the mind of every person in the room. God is the mind of every person in the room. And I have to say that those experiences all worked out just perfectly. But I brought to it that consciousness of unity. I brought to it that idea that we are one, that there is no separation there. And that when we come together in that consciousness of unity, we can do so many things. I love this quote here from Helen Keller. Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. When we think we are isolated, we're an island unto ourselves, and that we are not dependent upon things that are going on in the world, then it can be a very lonely place. It can be a very trying place. It can be a place where we feel bereft of that connection. We're not even if we're not connected to other people, sometimes it's hard to even connect with spirit, because we experience spirit through other people, through other creations. That's the only way that spirit ever shows up, is through its creation. And so if we think we need to be alone all of the time, then we're missing out on that interaction with spirit in these wonderful and unique forms that it takes in everyone that we encounter. Recently I've been a little bit irritated with stores, because so many stores are now doing that self-checkout thing. I don't like it, because the only reason I go to a store, I can buy anything I want online, let's face it. The only reason I go to a store is for human interaction. And then I go to the store and I can't get it. And it's beginning to irritate me a little bit. I'm not very nice when they ask me my opinion of things. So, and those of you who know me, that's, nice is relative. I'm probably a lot nicer than most anyway. So it's, when we come together in community and come together with other people, we experience God in a unique and perfect way. That's the way that we rise. That's the way that we thrive. It's when we come together and see God in all of its wonderful incarnations showing up, and then learning to navigate all of those different personalities and ideologies and so forth. Good or not so good, I'm not real sure yet. I haven't figured it out, but we are facing one of those times in our world right now where we get the opportunity to deal with a lot of people who think differently than us. I'm not real sure yet if that's good or not, but I'm going to work through it and see what shows up out of it. But I do know that if I take that idea that God is everyone I'm dealing with, then I'm going to have a different experience than if I look at someone else and say that they are other, whatever that other is. If I think they are other, then it's going to cloud my experience of how I interact with them. So today, again, we're talking about the power of being in community. And so, remember, unity is not just a spiritual concept. It's an actual practical reality. We, in a thriving community, have to have other people around us so that we can build a community, so that we can uplift each other, so that we can be a beneficial presence in our greater community. And again, we get faced with all kinds of challenges in this, where we are coming up against people with different ideas and different points of view and different ways of being. And we have to learn to navigate that. I was thinking of trying to figure out examples of other things that come together in unity. And the first thing I thought of was an orchestra. And so an orchestra is filled up with lots of individuals playing lots of individual instruments. And we can get delighted when we have a soloist who stands up and plays their instrument in a way that brings it out to the forefront of the rest of the orchestra. But the beauty of the music is in the symphony that's happening, in all the blending of all of those different instruments as they're being played. Each one has its unique sound, but the harmony that's created is what really makes the music wonderful. And so just like a symphony, we each have a role to play in our symphony that we're creating here in a community, and we bring to it our individual talents, our individual instruments, and our individual ways of being. The other thing I was thinking about, I like jigsaw puzzles. I don't know if anybody else does. I kind of like those. They're fun to play when I'm at home by myself. But you can be putting a jigsaw puzzle together and come across some of those pieces that are very difficult and don't really want to work with the other ones very much. Right? Have you ever had that happen? Or you get those ones that just don't seem to fit anywhere. Right? But we all of us know when one of the pieces is missing. We all can easily recognize when there's something that's out of place there, something is not being not put in its right place there. And just like a community, we feel the absence of any of the members here. When you are here regularly attending with us and then all of a sudden you're not here, it's like, sometimes it might take a week before we realize it or so, but it's like, wait a second, I haven't seen them in a while. What's happened? And so then we start to wonder about that and check on folks and see how they're doing. So just like the symphony, just like the puzzle, we need all of the parts to go together and fit together to create the beauty that's around there. And so how often do we stop and consider the impact of our actions when we're in a group together? Remember, we are all part of this one. We believe in this interconnectedness and an interdependence on each other. So how often do we stop and think, in any kind of situation, what was the impact that I brought to the situation? So often it's like we're looking at what somebody else did and not looking at what was my part in this situation here? What was the impact that I brought to it? I think as we're dealing with group dynamics and communities and all kinds of communities that we have, if we take a moment and look, what am I bringing to it? What is my presence showing up as for this situation here? I think we can begin to have a different experience. I love this quote from John F. Kennedy that says, "A rising tide lifts all boats." And so as we begin to rise in our consciousness, as we begin to be a little more thoughtful about how we interact with other people, how we approach every situation, we are lifting the consciousness of that group. And as we lift the consciousness around us comes up too. As I said, when I was teaching, I was dealing with people from all different walks of life, all different points of view, all different religions, all different ways of being. And yet, my experience was always okay. And I have to believe that it's partly because of what I brought into the situation. I brought in the consciousness that there is only one in here, and that this one is interacting with the one in another form. And so it rises the consciousness up to a higher level of being, and it makes the experiences so much better. So when we think about that, remember that we are in this community here. We have this beautiful building here, but the building is just a symbol of the interconnectedness of all of the people that come here. It's a symbol of the love that we have for each other. It's a symbol of the intention that we put into it. Remember, we're celebrating our year anniversary here this month in our new building. And so think about the love that went into creating this space here. I know there were several of us that were here all of the time with the contractors, watching them and talking to them and interacting with them. Justin and I would bring them donuts and all kinds of things, and so they loved us. I don't know if you remember or not, but we did a building blessing about 6 months before we could get into the building, and so beneath your feet are white stones with our intention that we set upon it. We buried them before we poured the concrete. And then right after we got into the building, before they put the linoleum down, we wrote our blessings for this building on the concrete. It's beneath your feet right now. All of that love, all of the intention that went into creating this community we call Center for Spiritual Living Greater Las Vegas, it's tangible right beneath your feet right now. And what a blessing that was to be able to do that, to set those intentions, first off, right from the get-go, and how we could make this place be for everyone who walks through the doors. To feel that love as you come in the door, to feel the intention that was put in here in the first place. And then when we do our sacred experiences like our labyrinth walks, and we know that we are walking, literally walking on holy ground, because it has been blessed by the consciousness of every person in this community. Literally walking on holy ground. Well, we always walk on holy ground, but anyway, that's another story. So when I was in ministerial school, I came across this concept. It's actually a story from Hinduism called Indra's net. Now, Indra is the king of the heavens. You know, there's 10,000 different gods in Hinduism, but Indra is the king of the heavens. And Indra has a net, and this net extends out to infinity, all directions to infinity. And just like a fishing net, you know, you have places where the threads cross. And every place there's a cross, there's a knot. And in the knot is a jewel. And the jewel represents each one of us. Each one of our consciousnesses is in those jewels. Now think about a jewel. A jewel has many facets to it. You know, they're cut at different angles. And so what happens with those facets? They reflect other jewels. So for every jewel that you are on the net, of an individual on the net, it is reflecting the image of the jewels around it. Now, think about what happens if that jewel gets touched. That movement of that jewel doesn't stay with that one jewel. What happens? It ripples out to the other jewels that are attached to it. And it goes on beyond that. It ripples out to the other jewels and so forth. And so just like anything we have with this idea, this net, just like our community, everything that happens to us individually happens to us collectively in varying degrees as we experience this idea of being together here. And so this, when I sometimes think of troubles with groups and things like that, I begin to do a meditation where I visualize Indra's net, and I place people in jewels in the net. And sometimes the jewels are different colors because sometimes I'm not really happy with that one, but I'm giving them a jewel anyway. They're getting a jewel, but maybe it's going to be some murky brown color. I don't know, or maybe it's going to be a sickly yellow or whatever. But they're getting a jewel, and so I can still see the reflection of myself in their jewels. And so what happens is their jewels brighten up for me, because I'm seeing the reflection of my own jewel into their jewels, and it brightens up the whole thing, and it changes the way I feel about the situation. And so everything that we do individually contributes to the experience of the whole. And so let's use this affirmation here today. Repeat it with me, would you? I am one with the whole, and my good contributes to the good of all. I am always one with the whole. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm experiencing, I am one with the whole. So when we get into this idea of dealing with difficulties in community, because again, we are lots of different personalities coming together. And so no community is without some kind of challenges here. You know, there's disagreements, there's misunderstandings, there's ideas of how I want things to be versus how somebody else might want them to be, or how someone else wants them to be, or how someone thinks it should be. We always love that one. But in all of these difficulties, there is a beauty there. Challenges are not a sign of failure. They are simply opportunities for us to grow. Another way, another experience, another thing to move through, another bit of more understanding that's available as we experience other people in community. And so when we begin to shift that, they begin to shift with us. So I have a little sign about that. Challenges are not a sign of failure, they're an opportunity for growth. So New Thought, our philosophy here, teaches us to look beyond the appearances and identify the hidden truth. If I always go back to that first principle that I said before, that there's only one God, living Spirit, Almighty, if I always take everything back to that, there's only one, then I'm going to have a different outlook on how it is I'm dealing with someone else. So when I'm faced with any kind of a challenge, I can ask myself, what is the presence of God in this individual here to show me? What is here for me to understand a little deeper? What is here for me to get clarity about? Because I haven't been faced with this challenge just to annoy me. It's not brought before me just to make my life miserable. It's been brought to me for me to have a greater understanding about my interaction with other people and about my way of being. Just like with that Indra's net, that flick of one jewel over there isn't meant to be just a disturbance to my jewel. There's something for me to know there, something for me to be aware of as I interconnected with everybody that's around me. And so what this does is this allows us to be more proactive instead of reactive. Because if I think that something is out there that is apart from me, that is separate from myself, and it's doing something to me, then I'm going to react to that. But if I go into a situation thinking there is only one here, that one is God, and I can then take that idea and look at the interaction I'm having between that other person through that lens of oneness, through that lens of unity, then I begin to have a different experience there. It allows me to respond with a little more love, a lot more patience, and a bit more understanding about the situation. Even if I'm not clear about everything that is motivating that person to react the way they are, I can get clearer in myself. I can choose to come from a place of love there. And so how do we do that? I mean, it sounds really good, but you know me, I like practical things here. So these are some practical tools for it. So the first thing, and we tell our practitioners this all of the time, whenever you have any kind of conflict, first thing you do is stop and pray. Somebody came up with a stop, drop, and pray kind of thing. It was kind of cute, but we stop. We stop and we go within. And even if you don't know spiritual mind treatment, even if you're not sure how to do that, if you're not even really used to praying, if you stop and ask a question like, what do I need to know here? There's only one, so if I'm asking that question, I'm communicating with that one. That's the same as me saying, God, please help me. What do I need to know here? What do I need to know? But stop and take a moment and pause. And in that moment, try to remember your unity. Try to remember that there's only God, that's the only presence in the room. That's the only presence that you're dealing with. And the second thing is practice active listening. So often we go into a challenging situation with a preconceived idea about what's going on here, right? Anybody else do that, or is that just me? Yeah, I go into things and I'm thinking, oh, I know what the problem is here. Yeah, or I know what's going to happen here. And so if you go into a situation with curiosity, with the willingness to hear and not necessarily, it reminds me of St. Francis's prayer. My wish is to understand, not to be understood. My wish is to hear the other person more than it is for me to be heard myself. I know what's going on inside of me. I'd like to find out what's happening with the other person that's causing this situation. So seek first to understand before you have to be understood. Again, active listening. If the person isn't talking, then think about some of those questions that you might ask. Something like, what would you like me to know in this situation? Or I like this one, what is it that you would like to see happen here? If you can begin to ask a question like that, you can get clarity about what the root cause is for that other person. And then always, always speak our truth. But do it with a little bit of love, a little bit of compassion. There are lots of ways that we can speak our truth. And I'm sure most of us have engaged in some of them that we wish we could take back. But if we come from a place of love and compassion for the other person, then we are more likely to be heard than not. But if we come to it with anger and aggression and so forth, it's going to shut the other person down as well. So again, looking at each situation and taking these simple, practical steps as we approach the situation, as we are interacting with the other person, can begin to help us move through it. So we have an affirmation for that here. I love this one. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow in love and understanding. Say that with me. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow in love and understanding. So, as I said, we are in a situation right now where we are facing lots of different points of view about things that are happening, how things should be, and what should happen, and so forth. And so how can we begin to deal with that? Even in a community of like-minded people, which we consider this to be a community of like-minded people, there are different points of view here. It would be really boring, honestly, if everybody thought the same. I'm just saying. It really would be. We need the diversity. We need to have the different points of view. We need to have different ways of doing things to make things thrive. If everything was the same, it becomes stagnant. And nothing thrives in stagnant waters. And so the opposing viewpoints are not just unavoidable. They are essential to the well-being of a healthy community, to have differing points of view. They actually begin to expand our awareness and deepen our empathy for each other. Empathy, compassion, love, understanding. When we begin to develop those, we become a thriving community. In our philosophy, we believe that truth is multifaceted. Truth comes to us in lots of different ways. We think of ultimate truths, God is one, and love is all there is, and beauty and grace and peace and harmony, those are qualities of the divine. But none of those are absolute in our experience. They are absolute and perfect in spirit. But in our human world, we experience them in different ways. What I might call love, someone else might call abuse. What I might call abundance, someone else might call poverty. We all have different points of view here, so we have to begin to look at those and know and understand that truth comes to people different ways. And so when we approach these differing views with curiosity, with a willingness to understand, instead of approaching them with judgment, then we create a space for collective consciousness to emerge, for collective wisdom to show itself, for collective harmony to flow through everyone when we begin to approach things that way. And so we can always learn from differing perspectives of different people. That it's vital for a community that we have differing points of view. Whenever we do any visioning and planning for things like that. I love to have all of the people we have in leadership coming together and talking about them, because we get lots of different points of view. And we get ideas that one person individually can't possibly think of all of the different ideas. Or an idea may feel wrong to me, but to someone else, the way they present it, it's like, oh my goodness, that's perfect. That's the way to be. And so when you approach differing opinions, always ask yourself, what can I learn from this perspective? What can I learn here? What is here for me to know? Those are one of my primary questions in life. What is here for me to know? Or I also ask this when I do my meditations in the morning. What do I need to know today? What do I need to know today? And there's always something willing to bring itself forth for me to know in every situation. So I'm going to have an Ernest Holmes quote here. This came from the Science of Mind magazine. I like this one. If we can bind ourselves together reverently, in love and compassion, in mutual tolerance and understanding, under the cohesive powers of the universal law of good and the beneficence of the divine and universal presence, then shall we be able to understand that unity does not mean uniformity, and begin to create a pathway to a new enlightenment. Unity is not uniformity. We cannot have everybody be the same. It just simply would not work. It would make it stagnant for us. And so we honor those different perspectives. We honor the ways that people show up beautifully and uniquely and perfectly, just the way that you are. It is our blessing for us to be in community with other people, because we get to see how God is showing up through them. And so here's another affirmation for us. Let's say this together. I honor the divine wisdom in every perspective. In every perspective. There is wisdom there. There is grace there. There is a clarity about the situation that we might not have thought of. Again, unity is not uniformity. It is a blending of differences. Just like the symphony blending all of the different instruments, we create a harmonious environment when we bring together all of these disparate qualities and bring them into interaction with each other. You know, in our ability to hold space for disagreement and yet remain connected at a deep level, we begin to grow a community, a healthy, strong, vibrant community. I know there's an analogy, it just came to me here, about plants that it's a tree, right? If you have a tree and you keep it staked up its entire life, it doesn't develop the root system that it needs, that it gets when it's in the wind and the rain and all of the different things of nature. It needs a little disturbance in its life to make it healthy and thriving. I guess we all need a little disturbance in our lives too to make us healthy and thriving. We become resilient when we face challenges and we move through them and we come out the other side of it. We become resilient. We become stronger for it. And of course, that can only help us as a community. And so how do we rise? We rise by remembering that we are one, that our challenges are just stepping stones. Every challenge is just a stepping stone to move us further down the path. And our diversity strengthens us. We are one. Challenges are stepping stones, and diversity strengthens us. So I have one more Ernest quote here, which will end with this. Success does not mean the accumulation of wealth or the supremacy of power. Success means a life free from the burden of anxiety and liberated from the thraldom of fear. Isn't that a great phrase? The thraldom of fear. There is no successful life without peace or without that inner spiritual certainty which knows that the soul is on a pathway of good, forever expanding into the conscious union with God. That's our ultimate journey, is to make and understand that conscious union with Spirit, to really begin to know that we are one, that one presence and that one power chose this vessel to show itself forth through. What an amazing thing that is. What an amazing thing. A couple of months ago, I was talking about being the delight of God. We are the delight of Spirit at every single moment. Can you imagine that Spirit took enough effort and enough time to put itself in you so that it could experience the world as you? Take that forth with you when you go out. Remember that you are the vessel of the divine and that you have an opportunity in every moment to let God come out. Let's take this into prayer. I invite our practitioners to stand and surround us. Our practitioners are wonderful folks who will know the truth for you in any situation. They offer individual counseling sessions, so if you're ever interested in working with a practitioner, their contact information is listed on our website, or you can find them here in the sanctuary and ask them about it. After service, we have prayer, and you're welcome to talk to them then about that. Schedule an appointment with them. Work through a challenge with them. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to have someone know the truth for you when you can't see it for yourself, because sometimes we're in that place where it's just difficult to see it. And so let's just take a moment and take a deep breath. And if you'd like, close your eyes. I think closed eye prayer is very powerful. And so right here and right now, in this very moment, in this very place in which I stand, I know that there is only one thing, one power, one presence, one divine creative intelligence that has brought forth everything into existence. This one is the isness and the allness and the fullness of all life. It is the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. It exists in everything. It shows up perfectly as every creation. It is of power of love, of peace, of harmony. It is infinitely abundant and always pouring itself forth into expression. And because I know there's only one, I know that I am one with it. I know that the power and the presence of the divine resides right at the very heart of my being. And as I know this is true for me, I know this is true for each and every one of us. For we all stand on holy ground. No matter where we are in our lives, we are on holy ground because the presence of the divine is right there, embedded within each one of us. The perfection and the wholeness of God is showing itself up as our experiences. Each one uniquely tailored for us to continually move on that ever upward spiral of evolution towards that conscious union with Spirit, towards that life where we know without any doubt that we are one. This is each one of our own individual journeys, and each one of us is moving through it at the right and perfect pace for us, right here and right now. And I know that at the end of this journey is an awakening of consciousness, where we truly feel and sense and see the presence of the One as us. I am so grateful to know this. I'm so grateful to feel it. I'm so grateful to see it in action in this community and beyond. And so I release this word into the law, into that creative mind of that universal love intelligence. I let it go and I let it be. And together we say, and so it is.